This is Gabriel Custodiet of Watchman Privacy. I know why you're here. You're looking to escape the technocratic apparatuses that you see slowly enveloping you and restraining your freedom. For the fundamentals of privacy, you should start by visiting escapethetechnocracy.com to see my video tutorials, books, and other resources for getting off the surveillance grid. Watchman Privacy and Escape the Technocracy are leading the fight for privacy, and unlike just about any other show, we practice what we preach. Private payment options, no threat modeling, no statist or collectivist solutions, and no sponsors, ever. You know what that means? It means we can speak the unmitigated truth as we see it. Your support alone determines the future of this show. Go support you and me at escapethetechnocracy.com. All right, so the date is February 22nd, 2025, and what just happened was one of the biggest thefts in human history, and specifically Ethereum has been stolen. So just reading here from an AP article, a major cryptocurrency exchange says it was the victim of a sophisticated hack that stole about $1.5 billion worth of digital currency, making it one of the biggest online thefts of all time. Bybit said Friday that a routine transfer of Ethereum, one of the most popular cryptocurrencies, between digital wallets was manipulated by an attacker who transferred the crypto to an unidentified address. Here I'm reading from Forbes. According to Bybit's co-founder and CEO Ben Zhu, the attacker exploited a masked UI and URL, deceiving wallet signers into unknowingly approving a malicious transaction. So we're going to, in the next few minutes, break down what happened in this hack, what it means for Ethereum, what it means for cryptocurrency, and I will let you know that even if you're not interested in Ethereum, I'm not that interested in Ethereum. This is very consequential. We're talking about all sorts of consequential things happening based on what has happened in late February of 2025. I'm Gabriel Custodiet. This is Watchman Privacy Torchlight Chats, where my friend Urban and I discuss things that interest us in the realm of technology and tyranny. So I want to give the floor to you a lot here, Urban, because you're well-versed in Ethereum. You know quite a lot about Ethereum. There's a lot of misinformation surrounding these events. So Urban, where should we even start with this?
It's a bit of an emergency recording that we are doing now, you know. This happened maybe even less than 24 hours ago at the time of this recording. And we wanted to do an Ethereum episode now for a long time to explain people, you know, from our view, because it's a topic we never really touch. And as you said, not many people of our audience are interested into Ethereum for various reasons. It sometimes has a bit of a bad reputation in the Bitcoin circles due to various things and some concern that people had. So yeah, it was we planned for quite some time to have this episode. However, with this hack, we decided to like just go for it and talk about this hack and also Ethereum in general.
So why don't we start with this, just to set the scene here. Just give people a basic idea of what is Ethereum, especially, let's say, compared to something they're more familiar with, like a Bitcoin or a Monero.
I think Monero is in its own category. I will not really compare it to Monero at all, because Monero does things in it's like a different animal, sort of. But we will compare it to Bitcoin, and I think we will compare it in a way that you never really had in your typical mainstream Bitcoin influencer podcast. And I will try to be very balanced and also to defend Ethereum sometimes, because I felt there was a lot of misinformation sometimes and mischaracterization. So Vitalik is originally a Bitcoiner, and he was writing an article for the Bitcoin magazine. And when he discovered the Bitcoin, he was very excited about the potentials. And not many people know, but Bitcoin has smart contract, right? It has smart contract. It's actually one of the cool things about Bitcoin is you can do smart contract. You can decide certain condition on how the money is spent in one way or another. Initially, for safety concern, Satoshi disabled a lot of, the smartness in Bitcoin, and now we are left with a restricted set of instructions, if you want, but it has its own programming language, and you can do things. And when Vitalik discovered this, he was really excited, and that's what he wanted. He wanted the programmable money. aspect of Bitcoin, and he wanted to try to do experimentations with how like different ways you could program a condition to spend, have like maybe like automatic marketplaces where you're not trusting anyone, and you can still do transaction, that sorts of stuff. The Bitcoiner, they basically they already at the time they were a bit allergic to change, for good and bad reason. And he decided that it was better to create his own project. So that's how Ethereum started. There is a certain merit, to just, if what you want to do is too different from the original project, maybe it's better to try it from scratch. And the entire premise and idea of Ethereum was that you're going to have Turing complete smart contract. Now, Turing complete, it's a word that we listen a lot. We have this a lot, especially now with AI. What does it mean to be Turing complete? In a very, very simplified way, it's a machine that can do any operation. And I will keep it at this because, if you go in the philosophical realm, it's maybe another episode on just what Turing completeness mean. But in short, is that you can do everything a calculator can do, everything a computer can do. Now, in the case of Bitcoin, it is not Turing complete, right? It cannot solve, and you cannot solve any problem on the blockchain. You can do creative things, For instance, you could say that you send the money to a Bitcoin address, and then if 5 is equal 4, you can spend the money. And of course, this is impossible. So it means the money will never be spent. And it won't be spent because this mathematical condition is impossible to solve. Now you could say, well, that's completely useless. Why would you want to do that? You can do other things like riddle. For instance, in Bitcoin, you could say whoever has this password that once decrypted gives this answer could spend the money. And you could have challenged like this, and this has been done in the past. And basically you pay, it's going to be fair because you're going to pay, whoever solved this first is going to be the one who can spend the money. So Bitcoin is not just, the most of the time when you transfer money in the Bitcoin ecosystem, it's basically going to say whoever has the corresponding private key to this public key can spend the money. I'm very, very simplifying a lot. And I know people will say, but for the purpose of this episode, this is more than enough that you need to know. So whoever has the private key can spend the money. That's about it, right? Now, in Ethereum land, you can pretty much do anything you can think of. You could even decrypt the infamous Enigma machine, from World War II Germany that they were using to secure their communication, and that was broken. You could decode it on the Ethereum blockchain, right? Because it's flexible enough to do any computation. It might be very slow because it's a blockchain and da-da-di-da-da, but it can in theory do it. So you can store data on it, you can manipulate data, you can have all sorts of smart contracts. And now we come to, so that's kind of like what Ethereum wanted to be. It's this general purpose, decentralized computing machine money, kind of. I'm not sure if I would call it money, but that was the premise of the project.
How do you think that Ethereum is falsely described by people who just aren't interested or don't understand it? Because clearly you have a little bit of interest in the technology.
Okay, so let's address the first thing. Like, a lot of people will call Ethereum a shitcoin, and I think this is mainly because they are doing all sorts of, like, there is a lot of scam running, like using the tools that Ethereum provide to create tokens, right? And what you need to understand is when people are creating those tokens, they are not creating a new cryptocurrency. They are simply creating a new token on top of Ethereum. And because Ethereum has a smart contract that are Turing complete, you can basically build like a blockchain in a blockchain, and you can have like various tokens, and people use it to scam each other. But that is, I would say, that is not, obviously that is not optimal. That's not something we want, but that's just, if the technology allows you to do things that are good, it also allows you to do things that are bad. And certainly this is an example. So, a lot of people just dismiss it because of this. Now, me personally, I'm not interested in DeFi, I'm not interested into all this ecosystem, but I think it's a bit of a mischaracterization. Another one that I've seen used many, many times is, especially since it moved to proof of work, from proof of work to proof of stake, is that, oh, you know what? Now it's not censorship resistant. And I will remind people that to this day, Tornado Cash, which is kind of like the way you gain privacy in Ethereum, that is still running to this day, even with the OFAC sanction and all the developers sitting in jail. And we have seen, I mean, in a sad way, we have seen what happened with Wasabi and Samurai. Those were way more centralized than Tornado Cash. So the platform itself is more robust than what a lot of people would like, I think, would like to believe. You know what I mean? It's like they wish it would be, this train wreck, like, getting, all sorts of issues and stuff. And to a certain extent it is, right? I don't get me wrong. I have my fair share of issue with Ethereum. But on the decentralization side of it, it seems to hold. Even with proof of stake, it seems that it's working. And they couldn't shut down the smart contract, which is in itself, I think it's a quite incredible achievement, despite being on the OFAC sanction list. So I would say those are the main characteristic that I would say are a bit like mischaracterization of Ethereum. Also, I don't think Ethereum per se, it's a scam. It's maybe a slightly misguided and, kind of like kumbaya project, like let's build something everybody together. Also had a huge pre-mine, there is a certain shady aspect of it, but I wouldn't characterize it as a scam. I don't think they are trying to scam anyone. I think they are maybe misguided and they are unsure what they are creating.
So before we get into this big recent hack, Urban, there have been some other hacks in Ethereum, and maybe it would be good to comment on these before we get to this one, because there's clearly a little bit of trouble in paradise as Ethereum is concerned.
As we are going to see, I think one of the main issue with Ethereum, it's its complexity. It's a very complex ecosystem, and you can do a lot of things, and it's hard to know if what you're doing is the correct thing or not, or it's gonna not just blow up in your face. So there was like a precursor to this hack. Now the things are a bit different, the time is different, but there is the infamous DAO hack. And the idea was, they had this big dream of doing a decentralized or autonomous organization, and to have, basically people would be able to stake their token and to do votes, kind of like in a democracy, and to decide where those funds would go. And you could imagine to like finance a project, finance some kind of any project you could think of. And this was like the premise. Now, what happened in the case of the DAO hack, the smart contract that they used was hacked by someone. So they had all the, this was like a bit like a white elephant project of Ethereum. This was to showcase what could be done with Ethereum. And what happened in the case of the DAO hack is that someone hacked it, and just took the money. The money was in a time-locked smart contract, so the money was frozen for 30 days. It means that, they had 30 days to decide what to do with this scenario. What is special about this hack, and the reason why I want to discuss about this one first, is that there have been many hacks on Ethereum, but I think this is the one that for a lot of people shattered the innocence of the project and maybe made it, kind of like a cross the Rubicon moment for the ecosystem. So you have all those Ethereum influencers that lost tons of money into this DAO hack. And here comes the question, should we undo it? Now, if you undo it and you show that you can undo it, you prove that this is not decentralized, right? You prove that you can indeed, that there was this whole idea from the cypherpunk that code is low. So whatever the codes allow, however sad and maybe unexpected it is, well, this is what the code did. And undoing it would be, kind of like a sin. And there is a lot of this mentality in Bitcoin, code is low and that's it. And in that case, well, they kind of voted and you had like a centralized decision that was taken. I'm not sure the details about it. And honestly, I don't care. What matters is that they reversed the transaction. And this broke this, this idea that the blockchain is immutable, that you cannot go and pass and modify it. And by the way, they did this when it was proof of work, so in that case, proof of work or proof of stake, this is irrelevant. This is not important. What matters is that they did it and it split the chain. You now have two blockchain. You have Ethereum Classic, where the money got stolen. And I think to this day, it still sits in the address and was never touched. To be fair, I don't know the whole, lore around it and the legend. And then you have, the Ethereum, quote unquote, normal, which stayed, reverted this money. Now, look, you could say, what's wrong with that? That's, there was a mistake, and lots of people lost money. Well, I think we're going to see that there are some legal implications. Like if you show willingness that you can revert this type of stuff, that could have interesting legal implication, like today for the hack that we saw. But also a few months later, there was another hack, from a competitor project that was using Ethereum. When this project asked the Ethereum Foundation if they could revert it, the Ethereum Foundation said, oh, no, code is low. We can't do that. So it seems that, it was selectively changed. Now, I will say Bitcoin had a moment that some describe similar, there was once in the beginning of the chain, there was like someone who printed like 4 billion trillion Bitcoin in like one fake transaction. And this was a bug. I will say this is a bit different for a few reasons. Number one is Bitcoin was worth nothing. Like it was virtually worthless at the time. So it didn't really impact it anyway. It was just like a fun project that people were running. And Satoshi, what he did is he changed the code, and then people just decided to update the code and it removed the problem. And that was it, but he used the Bitcoin built-in mechanism of self-healing to solve the problem instead of having a top-down centralized approach. And it just happened that most people did not want it, to end up with someone having 4 trillion billion Bitcoin in his hand. So they just, kind of like forked it. But they did it in a very elegant way where it was just a matter of the majority of miners choose the new software. And naturally, people choose the new software. Bitcoin was completely worthless at the time, so there was no consequence of money. And that was it. And it's in its entire history, I would say this is like the one time that you could really say that the protocol failed in a spectacular and scary way. So yeah, those are some of the difference, right? But all in all, this happened and it kind of left people a bitter, Ethereum, it has been described as also another thing called solar punk, and maybe we could discuss a bit, is this idea that, the green paradise, is going to be sunny and green and beautiful. And a lot of people like this got shattered that day when they decided to revert the transaction.
So 2016, this split of Ethereum happens. A lot of people might not realize that. And the question about this current hack, as we move on to that, it will be interesting to see if this gets rolled back, as it were, because we're talking about giving, according to some reports, right? According to some reports, $1.5 billion to North Korean hackers. So that is quite a moral conundrum. Now, let's move here, Urban, into this recent hack. What did you discover about how this was pulled off, this one in February 2025?
Yeah, that is like the worst nightmare for an exchange. And I would say for anyone, because, self-custody, like everybody, like when you custody with an exchange, it's just the exchange is self-custodying for you, right? So there is self-custody everywhere. So when you're an exchange, it's just like a much harder task to do because you're going to be a target. I have to say this one is probably one of the most incredibly well-crafted and very scary things that happen in cryptocurrency in the recent year. And I will say for our listener, if you want to kind of get an idea of this was probably a long planned operation for many, many months, if not years. And it's probably to go back to one of our episodes that we did together called the XZ backdoor. which is not about cryptocurrency. It's one on the Linux kernel, but this will show you some of the dedication that hackers might have, to like break into your computers or steal your money and doing all sorts of stuff. Yeah, so if you want to like listen to like an in-depth analysis of what is a backdoor and a very long-term threat, this is a good one for you. Now, moving here now in the present day, what they did in a very short summary is, and you will see how this is possible because I'm going to describe this in detail, but first you need to understand they basically hacked a smart contract, and it was a multi-sig, right? It was a multi-sig. They use hardware wallet. They use our dedicated hardware wallet, and they were able to basically hack the contract and steal the funds. Now, what you need to understand, if you remember at the beginning of this show, we explained briefly how Ethereum was born. Now, Bitcoin has this pre-made template of doing things. You can spend money if you have this private key, or you can spend this money if you have more than 2 valid private key. This is how you would do multisig in a very, very simplified way. That is how Bitcoin does things. Now, Ethereum is way more freestyle. In Ethereum, you basically have a blank state. You have to just come up with however you want to do it. And you can choose in however, there are like slightly different ways to do, things. And this means that multi-signature on Ethereum is incredibly difficult and hard to do because you need to create a smart contract. And it's always slightly different. There is no standardized way to do it. I'm not sure if there could be a standardized way to do it because you need it to be compatible with the greater Ethereum ecosystem. If you make it simpler, you might as well just end up using Bitcoin, right? So what people do is they create those elaborate scripts, smart contract that can spend, from a multi-sig wallet. And this means that you might not have the exact same script as someone else. Now, obviously, this is kind of a nightmare. Like my cybersecurity brain is like, this is like ripe for issues. So people are a bit smarter than this. What they do is they will use a company that does it for them, right? And this is not a bad approach per se. You have like dedicated people who will write a smart contract for you, and they will make it sure that it does what it says on the book. And most exchanges do this. There are many companies that do it. This is a problem that doesn't really exist in Bitcoin. Now, again, if we go to Bitcoin, because of its simplicity, when you spend money, the hardware wallet can show you the entire transaction, and it can show you, it can easily show you and compare it to the template that you expect and tells you, yeah, this is spending this amount of money to this address, and the rest goes back to you into this smart contract. And I use voluntarily the term smart contract because many Bitcoiners are not aware that Bitcoin has smart contract, and this is a smart contract in Bitcoin. They might be simple, but they are smart contract nonetheless. So the hardware wallet will show you the entire process. You don't have to trust your computer for any of this. Now in Ethereum, I don't really use Ethereum anymore, so I'm not so familiar with the latest and greatest, but the wallet, so typically you will interact through a user interface, and the Ethereum ecosystem being so vast, there are dozens of different ways to interact with smart contract. Again, there is no standardized way. What people don't realize is you can do anything with the smart contract. You can even update without spending any money. You can actually update the spending conditions, right? Now, why would you do this? Well, look at, Tornado Cash. It would be nice if you can update the software without having people to spend their money in and out. In Bitcoin, this is not possible. If you want to change the multisig in Bitcoin, what you need to do is spend the full amount of money into a new smart contract, and there is no in between. You cannot update without spending the entire money. And when you try to spend the entire money, your wallet will warn you because it's a very simple script. It's a very simple tool. And in Ethereum, as we said many times, this is not the case. This is much more complex. This is much more intense. So what happened is the user interface on your computer will show you a new smart contract that most people have no clue what it does. And then the hardware wallet will show you the smart contract and tells you a simplified thing of what it's supposed to do. But this is not an audit. I mean, it's one thing, to like display a simplified version of what's going on. It's another to display what is actually going on. Those are two different things. And it looked that what happened, and we don't fully understand the whole details, but it looked, they knew, so they were expecting, they were, as part of, exchange they do every month, they, put money out of cold storage to use it for customer fund, to get more liquidity. This is like, when we say cold storage, it's not like this deep frozen thing that doesn't change. It's more like it might change, once a month or maybe once every 6 months. And in this case, the exchange, I think they had a protocol of doing every month. The attacker knew about this. They knew the schedule. They probably hijacked the computer of the attacker of the exchange. They changed the smart contract. They might as well have changed the way it is shown on the user interface. So now you have a computer that is lying to you, and you have a hardware wallet that is your last chance of, stopping this. But the hardware wallet is not powerful enough to show you. I mean, again, Ethereum is Turing complete. So Ethereum smart contract can do anything. It is not possible for a small hardware wallet, that costs a few $100 max, to show you all the condition. Even for a computer, this is a hard problem to show you what a program does. I mean, if we knew how to solve this, there wouldn't be viruses, right? Because antivirus would be perfect at predicting what a program does. It's actually impossible on a deep physical level. It's unsolvable. It's impossible to know exactly what the software will do. A general purpose software. So you end up with what looks like a phishing that they probably got phished somehow. They were displaying fake information on their computer. You received the transaction as I don't know if it was the CEO, whatever, whoever was in charge to sign it. I'm not blaming them. I think everybody in their position would have probably done the same. Would have done the same. They expect to sign a transaction. It's that day of the month. They signed it. It's like 5 minutes maximum, and then boom, money is gone. And they're like, what? What happened? Well, what happened is they changed the condition. So you could change the condition and you could say, well, we need 3 signature, or we need the master key to be valid. And now if you're the one, if you introduce a new key in there and you call it master key and you say, well, that's the one, that can override all the others, then basically you can do whatever with the money. And it doesn't matter if you have a multisig, you can just, execute the new contract and that's done. And the 3 signer or whoever, I don't know how many they were, but they basically all got tricked. And I mean, sadly, the last one, and if you listen to on Twitter, it was kind of heartbroken because, it was the last one to sign, the last one to be able to stop, and, it was just gone. This is in a highly, highly simplified way. What happened, it's a complicated platform. Ethereum can do way too many things. It is hard to do things in a standard way. You can update and change everything, again, because it's supposed to be Turing complete. And that means that you can even change a condition of a multisig. Now, can you do this in Bitcoin? Kind of, yeah, you could. But then the wallet would tell you, hey, you're spending all your money to this new smart contract. Is it one of your address? And most hardware wallet will actually check if in Bitcoin, when you're spending it, if it send it back to an address you control that is using the same condition as the address you send it from. And again, because it's very simple, it's a very simple language. So they can do this, they can afford to do it. That is not possible in Ethereum. And maybe the company that provided the smart contract, they might have, some auditing to do as well. Potentially everybody using the same smart contract would need to rethink their operational security and to study this case. I'm sure this case will be, in cybersecurity textbook in the year that comes.
So what are these people who stole this ether, Urban? What did they do as soon as they took it? Where did this end up?
Yeah, I mean, it's your typical hack, where pretty much in all those high amount of money that got stolen, usually what happened is they just spread it out to multiple wallets. They swap it to some other, other blockchain like Solana, like many other chains. They just spread it and often change it. I think some of it went into Bitcoin. I mean, it doesn't really matter. What you need to understand is the money is not there. It just left, and it's now getting, probably tumbled and moved and mixed and all this stuff to try to obfuscate where it actually goes.
There have been some really bad takes that we've noticed from people who don't understand Ethereum or simply want to use this hack as a chance to dunk on Ethereum while jumping off of their own cryptocurrency. So one of the things that people will say is, oh, this is because Ethereum is proof of stake. First of all, what is proof of stake and why would that not have mattered in a hack like this?
Yeah, so proof of stake is just who has the right to modify the ledger, right? So to whom you give this incredible privilege to modify the ledger and update the entry to say to what happened. Now, in proof of work, this is simple, is, people burn electricity. I don't want to go too much into detail because I think everybody in this podcast, they probably listen to, the people who will tell you about the cyber hornet protecting Bitcoin and all that nonsense. But to make it very simple is you spend energy, you're the first one to solve the puzzle, you get the right to modify the blockchain, and then there is a new puzzle, and you also need to spend electricity again to do it. And this goes on and on and on. In proof of stake, it's different in the sense that you trust whoever has the most tokens. So you can stake token, you can lock them. Then whoever has the most token can validate. It has other issue. I have to say, me personally, my biggest issue with proof of stake, this is literally like banking 2.0. You trust the bank because they have a lot of money, and we have seen that in many cases you have bank run, and it's just something that doesn't work. We have yet to see in something like Ethereum if maybe they did it in a better way. That could be. Another funny thing that just in passing is the code for proof of work is incredibly simple. It's basically if you solve the puzzle, you get to add the new block. If you didn't, then you try again. Proof of stake, it's like something like hundreds of thousands of lines of code. It's much harder to understand what it's doing. Again, there could be some hack, there could be some issue. But long story short, what the miner and the validator are doing in both cases is they are taking in new transactions. They are checking that those transactions are kind of valid. And what I mean by valid is like, do the person has the money? Is there syntactic error in the transaction? Did they use a correct programming language? Is it the right size? It shouldn't be too big. And that's it. And if all of this is valid, you could even write something that has only zeros, and just spend the money to like inscribe this on the blockchain. And the miner would just do it. I mean, they see, okay, so this person wants to do that. It's allowed per the rules, done. In that case, well, the multisig was valid. The new smart contract was valid. Miners or validator would have made zero difference. So it doesn't matter. This could have happened in proof of work, Ethereum. Now, personally, I wish Ethereum would have stayed proof of work. But that's just my personal reason. I prefer proof of work. I think it's more secure and more robust, but it wouldn't have changed. It wouldn't have made any difference.
Have you seen any other misunderstandings about Ethereum or bad takes as a result of what's come out in the last day or two?
Another thing I've seen is people bashing hardware wallets, and especially Ledger, because it appears that the last one who signed the transaction was a Ledger. And again, this doesn't matter. Your signing device is merely checking a few rules. Now, in Bitcoin, it would have been able to check more rules, but in short, that doesn't matter. That could have happened on any device. And proof is there were 3 devices, and it's more like they hacked the humans themselves. They didn't really hack I mean, if you think about it, it's more a human failure. But I have to say, the protocol doesn't make it easy. Ethereum doesn't make it easy on humans to check what's going on. So no, the hardware manufacturer, I don't see them having any chances to prevent something like this. And by the way, similar things happen in Bitcoin. In Bitcoin, the way this would have been done is to trick you into sending the change. So let's say you have 10,000 Bitcoin and you pay someone 1 Bitcoin. Now, in the case of Bitcoin, you have 9,999 that goes back to you, right? If you paid, you have 1 Bitcoin and you get back the change. And in Bitcoin, you would send the change to someone else. This is kind of the equivalent in Bitcoin. And you could have done this in a multisig as well. The only difference is the wallet would have showed you that this is going to an address you're not controlling. And it would have probably warned you. But this could be like, if you get a bit like creative, you could have imagined something similar to Bitcoin. But it's harder to hide. But that's kind of what happened. So, but no, the wallet, I don't see anything wrong with wallet, unless we get more details that could be, but I would not jump against the manufacturer of the wallet. I don't see how they could have prevented it. I also don't see, if they were using a phone, like a Pixel phone or something, I don't think it would have made much of a difference. At the end of the day, they got tricked into signing something that was, stealing them. That is very hard to defend yourself against this.
Well, there's other reasons not to like Ledger, but we're trying to be truthful in how we present things and not to over exaggerate. So as we wind this down, Urban, the reason I mentioned what these hackers did with this is because they're probably using this network of decentralized exchanges and such that are out there. And this seems like a problem because if you think from the regulator point of view and the nation state point of view, North Korea just got $1.5 billion worth of something, and they're going to use that for nefarious things. You can easily see how this could be something that would lead to, all right, time to go after and shut down all of these nice little deregulated exchanges that a lot of us enjoy using. Do you see any problems with that on the horizon based on this attack?
I would compare this to maybe Axie Infinity, which was this, fun little DeFi game that was, with like cute creatures and you could like do all sorts of weird token stuff. Again, I'm not really into DeFi. I don't really care. This got hacked. The bridge, some kind of decentralized bridge was hacked. I think it was called the Ronin Bridge, and lots of money got stolen from this game. And this set in motion basically the dominoes that led to, Tornado Cash to be sanctioned and the shutdown of like many of those exchange. And it all started from a cute game that got hacked. But because the amount of money involved were so massive, and also as soon as you have, customer from Europe, customer from US, usually those country customer from, or even like China, they say, yeah, you know what, this is our jurisdiction now because we have customer affected by it. And it can lead to like a much, much bigger impact. So yeah, it's certainly possible that this happened. We don't know yet, but I wouldn't be surprised if this sets in motion. And maybe we should discuss, about the reckoning and, kind of like let people ponder, because Ethereum proved that they could go back and undo transactions. They did this years ago, to recover the money from the DAO hack. However, now we have, maybe a matter of national security, and there is a question, and some Bitcoiner have a bit, and maybe rightly so, this idea, okay, if you don't, you're gonna basically support potentially an enemy of the country that you live in, So there are like tons of questions. And if you show that you were willing to do it in the past, you could have, regulators asking you, why don't you do it now? Now, the difference between those two events, and I think it's important to understand that this is completely different. The first event, this was in Ethereum itself, and the money was locked for 30 days. So this left the people for 30 days to like ponder what to do with this situation. And the money couldn't be moved anyway. So, in that case, it's relatively easy and straightforward to say, you know what, we can just undo the chain and you can just remove that one transaction and nothing else is affected. But now, they spread this money over dozens of exchange and platform, and they just played it. If you look at blockchain analytics, you will see that this money just goes everywhere. Well, this means that if you undo, okay, now you're an exchange and you swap this, unfortunately, the criminal use your exchange to launder money. Okay, so you send them Bitcoin and you got Ethereum. Now, if they cancel that, they didn't get money from the attackers, but they got money from dozens of other innocent business that, were just exchanging the money and they were not aware this was hacked. And, at the speed that this goes, it is very hard. It's not like they go, oh, this is stolen money, we need to freeze it. This can be done very, very quickly. So there will be, I think, this might be one of those moments, just like in the case of the Axie Infinity, which happened, during the pandemic. This could be one of those big hacks that seriously changed the face of the whole ecosystem just because of the sheer scale of it.
Last and final thoughts here on all of this, Urban.
Maybe two very short things. One is, I think Ethereum is for now sometime in a crisis to understand what is their place in the whole crypto ecosystem. And this is something they need to answer themselves. When they were proof of work, they were the only Turing complete, widely used cryptocurrency. And now they change to proof of stake. But how is it different from, something like Solana? That is even more efficient and, doesn't really bother with decentralization. I think this is one thing. Another thing is, we've got a lot of people that wrote us about our advice on various tokens and stuff. And lots of them are using Ethereum. And we actually re-recorded a section of the Bitcoin course speaking about the way you can lose money to include those. And in one thing that I want to stress out is do not interact with meme coins. And a lot of them are using Ethereum. And even if Ethereum itself is not a scam, having all this stuff being done in Ethereum, you're gonna be rug pulled over and over and over. And it doesn't really matter that Ethereum is just the technology to make those meme coin. And that is something that every time I see people losing money, it kind of breaks my heart because it's just so predictable. So that's I would say the two things. And just to maybe answer to whoever is listening and is one of our good friend is CoffeeZilla, who does a lot of investigation about, cryptocurrency scam. He got one of the meme coin creator explaining that, if you think you can earn money out of it, you are fooling yourself because, those are professional Ponzi expert and they're going to rug pull you faster than you can think. You won't even see the carpet getting out of your feet. So yeah, don't do it. And this is not an endorsement from us for all these things that is going on Ethereum, but we felt like this was important to discuss about Ethereum and what it is and to try to do it in a neutral way.
Hey, thanks for listening. Look, I could use your help real quick. If you could share this, engage with me in some way, leave a review anywhere. This really helps me to break the technocratic shadow banning that is happening with my brand. And of course, if you really want to escape the technocracy, go to escapethetechnocracy.com. Privacy tutorial series, books, consulting, and of course you can leave a donation. Thank you very much.